The next thing we're going to talk about is MIDI mapping. MIDI mapping is something that Ableton approaches in a really easy to understand way. And at its essence, MIDI mapping allows us to take a key on our controller or a knob and assign a specific function to it, like turning a device on and on or controlling a volume fader. Basically, you can MIDI map anything you can think of. For the most part, the possibilities are limitless. Here's a few examples to illustrate MIDI mapping. Let's say I'm on stage and I'm a singer and I want to have some delay throws on certain parts or the ends of phrases and then not have it on the rest. I can assign a knob on my MIDI controller to turn send B up all the way and catch those moments live on stage. Or if I'm in the studio and I want to manipulate a volume fader without using my hand or my mouse to do that, I can assign it to a knob on my controller and have more of an analog approach to adjusting the fader. In a lot of ways, it's like the difference between reading on an e-reader or on a book itself. It's just a matter of workflow preference. Both ways is going to get the job done. When you MIDI map something, it's going to be specific to the session that you're currently in, not the software itself. So if you open a new session, you'll lose that map that you created, but if you go back to the other session, you'll always have it there for you. The possibilities with mapping can be somewhat endless, and you can easily go down a rabbit hole if you allow yourself to. So before we start remapping our entire controller, here's a few tips that I'd like to give you. Certain controllers like APCs, launch pads, and the push have specific buttons that perform specific functions. So you don't want to lose the inherent functionality of a piece of hardware that you bought. For instance, if you have a knob that is controlling the master BPM or the master fader, you don't want to map that because you're always going to want access to it. And conversely, if you're using your computer's keyboard and your key mapping, you wouldn't want to remap the spacebar because it's an integral part of triggering playback. So choose wisely when you're mapping and have a really good time. In order to start MIDI mapping, we need to enter MIDI map mode by going up to Options and selecting Edit MIDI Map from the drop-down menu here. So everything turns purple and a new window appears where Live's browser previously was, which is called the mapping browser. To map something, all I have to do is click or press on the parameter of functionality that I want to map. So I just clicked on the on-off device button for this audio effect here. And then I'm going to press a key on my MIDI controller. I'm going to press a G here. So Live automatically sees that I wanted to map something and it inserts the pathway for me. It's starting with the note, which I played, which is a G2, which is then going to go to the breakbeat audio track, to the drums room audio effect, and then turn the device on or off. So what we've done is created a pathway, letting the software that when we do this, we want it to do that. So for certain parameters which contain a wide range, for instance, a volume fader or a send knob, it's not necessarily on or off if we're adjusting the volume. We can limit the lowest or highest points by inputting them into the min or max section, which are listed immediately to the right of the pathway we created. So I'm going to quickly do this. I'm going to MIDI map this volume fader right here to another key on my computer, on my controller by pressing another key. I just pressed a B. So here's the note, B2, audio track, the breakbeat, and we're now adjusting the mixer track volume. And I'm going to set a minimum range here. I'll say I only want it to go as low as -24 decibels and at a maximum of -2 decibels. So now I'm going to exit MIDI map mode by the same way we got in, going up to Options and clicking on Edit MIDI Map again. So now we're just going to look for this to turn off. I'm clicking or pressing the G on my MIDI controller and we can see the device, yes, is turning on and off. And then moving over to this volume fader that we MIDI mapped, when I press the B, it's going to go to the maximum range I gave it, and then again, if I press it again, it'll go to the minimum. So we've successfully MIDI mapped something. And if you want to reassign a key on your computer's keyboard, you need to enter key map mode, which you can do by clicking on the key button located towards the upper top right side of Live's interface. So I'm going to click it here, and instead of everything turning purple, we're looking at everything orange. But the order of operations for MIDI mapping is absolutely identical. So I'm going to key map the letter Q on my computer keyboard to the global record functionality here. So I've clicked on global record and then now I'm pressing Q. So the letter Q here is going to the transport and it's going to trigger global record. So I'm going to exit key map mode the exact same way that I did. And I'm going to go into arrangement view here. So now I'm going to press Q. And if I scroll over, we are recording. You can see here on the transport, record has been triggered. If I press it again, we've now not recording. One more time, we are recording, so on and so forth. So back into session view, I'd like to talk about a grouping function, which you can use to combine tracks in groups. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to put the breakbeat and the tambourine into the same group. So they're percussive elements, and I might want to treat them identically. So I'm going to do this by clicking on one, and then I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard while I press the other one, and then now you can see they're both selected. Then I'm going to go up to Edit and select Group Tracks from the drop-down menu, and you can see Live grouped them for me, and then I can expand or fold this group by using the small triangle here on the right side of the title. And in the audio to signal of where we're routing our signal, you can see that the audio now is going to the group, whereas previously it was going to the master. So both of these tracks are running to the group, and then this track is running to the master. So if I affect the volume on this track, I'm actually also affecting the volume on these two as well. So I'm just going to launch this scene so we're hearing both of these happening. So you can see, even though I'm only affecting the group, in terms of turning this volume fader up and down, it's affecting both of these other tracks simultaneously.